Why do some naturals end up looking like they're on steroids, but other people can train for 10 years and barely look like they've lifted a weight? It isn't genetics, it isn't the perfect program, and it definitely isn't finding the most optimal exercise in the world. After nearly 20 years in the gym, I've realized it comes down to 4 decisions. In this video, I'm going to show you those 4 decisions and I'll give you a simple action to take for every single one. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show you the biggest mistake that held me back for years and how fixing it led to me making more progress than I ever thought was possible over the last 3 years. Before we get into that, if your goal is to build as much muscle as naturally possible, I've put together a free 12-week build guide. It covers everything from how to structure your training to how to set your calories. It makes sure that you're not gaining too fast or too slow, so you can guarantee yourself you're gaining mostly muscle and not fat. It is linked in the description below. Decision number 1 is, am I going to chase progress or am I going to chase novelty? There seems to be this massive trend of hopping from one plan to the next, trying out loads of crazy fancy new exercises, going after a different diet every week because that's surely the key to my progress. But people aren't missing the perfect plan, the perfect diet, the perfect exercise. What they're missing is spending enough time on the plan that they've got in place at the minute. Progressive overload is only going to work if you're comparing the same exercises each week. How can you go from doing a lat pull down to a pull up the next week and then back to a lat pull down and know whether you're making any progress at all? Every single time you chase novelty, you effectively reset everything back to zero again. It might feel a bit better, you might get a bit more soreness, a bit more pump, but that doesn't mean progress. There is about a 4 to 6 week learning curve with a new exercise where your body just needs to adapt to it before it can even really start building muscle. So you need to keep things in for as long as you possibly can if you want to get the best results. So the simple action here is to run the same program for at least the next 12 weeks and don't swap anything out of it unless you really have to. And I only know all this because I made these exact same mistakes when I first started training. I used to program hop all the time. I was always looking for a new exercise to try because I thought there must be something out there that's going to accelerate my progress. But it doesn't really work like that, unfortunately. And looking back, it was just that I needed to give the current plan more time. But even when you found a decent program, this next decision is where you are ruining your progress. Decision number 2 is, am I going to treat recovery as optional or as part of my training? Now, I'm not going to pretend everyone trains hard enough, but most people are more likely to have a recovery problem than a training problem. But you need to realize that muscle isn't actually built in the gym. Training is just a signal to say, come on arms, grow a little bit, we've done some bicep curls. But it's the recovery part that makes such a difference with how much you're able to adapt and grow. People don't get 7 to 9 hours sleep a night, and it's not because they can't, it's just that they decided to watch an extra episode of Netflix. People just have a shake after they train and they think that's what's going to get them to around about a gram of protein per pound of body weight. They don't look at their stress and ways to manage it. They'll sneak into the gym on their rest day just for a quick pump session. Most people would be amazed at how much progress they're able to make if they started to prioritize their recovery as high as they do their training. So the simple action here is pick one of these recovery habits, whether that is improving the number of hours that you're in bed each night, increasing your daily protein intake, actually taking your rest days. Pick one thing and make it absolutely non-negotiable. For years I thought if I wasn't progressing, I needed to do more. So I would be adding volume, sets, exercises, I'd be pushing harder, and I didn't put anywhere near the same amount of focus on my recovery. Now the next one is definitely where I left the most muscle on the table. Decision 3 is, do I actually want to build muscle or do I just want to stay lean? Most people bulk for 8 weeks, they start to feel a bit more uncomfortable, they don't like how they're looking in the mirror, the abs slowly start to disappear a little bit, and before they know it, they start cutting again. And that is not how muscle is built. Muscle building is a really, really slow process. And in order to maximize our growth, we need to be spending as much time in a surplus as possible. If you are spending more time or the same amount of time each year dieting than you are building muscle, you're never going to get very far. If you really want to see significant changes with your physique, you need to accept a little bit of extra fluff. And it might mean that you don't look as beach ready that year, or as good in the Instagram photos, but you need to think more long term and know that by dedicating a long time to a bulk phase, you're gonna look 10 times better the next time you cut. So the simple action here is to commit to a long gaining phase and not just stop because you got a bit fluffier. Shift your focus towards strength and performance and just keep going with that for as long as you can, providing your appetite's in a good spot, you're not getting overly fluffy, your performance is in a good place, you're sleeping well, you can just keep running with the gaining phase. And interestingly, until recently, I never actually ran proper bulk phases because I was always the kid with the abs. I like to be lean, I like to be shredded, and that was holding me back more than I realized. And even if you're nailing all three of these things, your emotions can start getting in the way a bit. So decision 4 is, am I gonna trust the process or give in to my emotions? Our emotions change literally every single day, and I think this makes a lot of people bury their head in the sand. They almost don't want to know whether what they're doing is working or not because they're afraid of failing. But the only thing that isn't going to lie to you is actually having some data to show you whether you're making progress or not. So the 3 most important things that you need to track are your body weight, every single day if possible, so you can look at the trend over time. Your lifts in the gym, and I'm not just talking about your favorite ones, every single one in your plan, you should know the weight that you lifted last week and the reps that you did so you can try to beat it. And the last one is your nutrition. And I know a lot of people don't like the thought of tracking calories, even though it's gonna be the quickest way to get where you want to be, but it doesn't have to be tracking calories. It could just be, I'm gonna have 4 servings of protein today with 2 to 3 servings of fruit and 2 to 3 servings of veg. So the simple action here is to start tracking your body weight, start tracking your lifts, and start tracking your nutrition in some way. Even after 20 years of lifting, I have days when I don't think I look very good. I think I look a bit flat, sometimes a bit skinny. It feels like I'm not making progress despite putting hours into everything. But if I let my emotions take over, I'd be changing things every 5 minutes. But because I have all the data, I know that's not true and I can just trust in the process. So here's the biggest mistake that held me back for ages. About 3 years ago, I've been lifting for well over a decade and I thought I'd reached my genetic limit. I thought I'd learned everything that there was to learn and that it wasn't possible to grow any more muscle. And I couldn't have been more wrong because the problem wasn't my training plan or my diet or my recovery or my exercise selection. It was that I was constantly trying to find the next best thing and not committing to the stuff that I already knew worked. I think I've been running the same training plan now for around about 2 years. I'm currently in a gaining phase at the minute. I've been in it for around 9 months. And I'm probably going to be in it still for another 6 or so months before I cut. I track everything I'm lifting in the gym and I look to progress that at least every single month. I'm nailing my recovery. I try to have the same sleep and wake time, 7 to 9 hours in bed every single night. I'm tracking my nutrition, nailing my protein, and just doing everything that I possibly can to build as much muscle as possible. And considering I've been training for so long and I'm more of an advanced lifter, I've probably made more progress in the last 3 years than I have across the entire of the time I've been training. So stop asking what's the best program, what's the best training split, what's the best rep range, and start asking, am I making decisions that allow those things to work? The problem is most people aren't willing to make these decisions and stick with them consistently. But if you make these decisions for long enough, you'll be surprised how much natural potential you actually have. So if you're serious about building muscle, you need to understand how much volume you need to be maximizing your progress. And I think a lot of people are either doing way too much or way too little, but I break it all down for you in this video, so go and watch that next.